Hi everyone. Today I'm interviewing Tammy Binn, who I'm so excited to interview because I want to be a commercial airline pilot in my future. And that is what she is. And she has broken so many barriers, being the first Black female Czech Airman at Envoy Airlines, which is a regional of American Airlines. So this is going to be a great conversation. And it just shows that any person, even if you don't normally think that you could do something as a career, you can do it. So let's get started and let's meet Tammy. Tammy, thank you so much for being here with us today. Can you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. My name is Tammy Binns, and I'm currently a first officer on the 737 for American Airlines. And I've been an airline pilot for about 15 years now, a little more than that. And yeah, I'm very thrilled to be here. I know that I don't know if you want some of the other little statistics of like women in aviation or any of that, but
Go ahead.
um, I believe that currently the statistics are that there are less, I think it's less than 6% of pilots are women, and as far as African American women, it's less than half of 1%. So I'm in a very small group, but I'm very happy to be here.
Are you involved in programs to help get more girls to think about it as a career or anything like that?
Absolutely. I'm part of an organization called Sisters of the Skies. Actually, I happen to be wearing the shirt. This is us. It's an organization comprised mostly of Black female professional pilots, whose mission is to increase the number of Black women in aviation through scholarship, mentorship, and outreach. And we have quite a few. I think we have 150 members now, so we're actually doing really well. The organization is 5 years old, coming up on 5 years. 2022 will be 5 years since the inception, so we're doing really well. And so we have a mentorship program. We have scholarships and stuff that we do as well. And yeah, no, we're doing great things. And OBAP is also a thing, but that's the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals, and that's open to not just women. That's open to anybody. So yeah, I'm very happy that we have those resources available to us.
So do you work on one-on-one with individuals or is it more broad?
Mm. Well, with the mentorship program that we have set up with Sisters of the Skies, it each mentee actually gets a one-on-one mentor. So each one of the mentors actually, it depends on what their availability is, what their load, what they can carry as far as how many mentees they have, and that's set by each individual. But yeah, we give one-on-one help to all of our ladies. So they will be talking to somebody who's either flight instructor on the way all the way up. Actually, you can be a commercial pilot and be a mentor as well. So anyone commercial pilot or higher can actually go through and be a mentor. We also have it set up so that we don't kind of just drop you as soon as you become a full member once you get your commercial pilot's license. So we also provide mentorship for our members that are still growing and moving up through the ranks in their pilot careers.
That's great. I never knew about that, but I will definitely look into that as a resource.
Absolutely.
Can you tell us why you wanted to become a pilot and when you started to think of it?
Um, Actually, I didn't realize that it could be a job for me. I have a very atypical story as far as most airline pilots go. Most airline pilots know they want to be pilots at like 4 years old. They're like, hey, I saw an airplane and I wanted to fly. So mine actually was kind of around the way. So I actually never saw any pilots that looked like me. So somehow it never triggered that I could be a pilot, that was something I could do. It really was a representation matters kind of thing, and the lack thereof. I always loved flying, loved being at the airport, but somehow that didn't occur to me. So, long story short, my freshman year of college, I was a music major. I decided I was going to be a music teacher. And by the end of freshman year, I was like, yeah, this isn't for me. And so I changed my major. I changed my major to speech pathology and audiology. I was going to be a speech therapist. And then halfway through sophomore year, I was like, yeah, no. And all freshmen were required to take an aptitude test before starting freshman year. And so, being like every other teenager, I took the test and didn't look at it because I knew better than everybody else. So I promptly took the test, threw it somewhere else. I'm like, I know what I'm doing with my life. My best friend, now that I'm, 2 majors in and still haven't found what I wanted to do, she's like, why don't you pull out that aptitude test and figure something you like from the list of things you would be good at? And at the top was aviation. And I was like, I want to do that. My school had a program, had an airport and everything. So I just changed my major to that in my junior year of college, and the rest has been history. I love it.
What school were you attending at that time?
I went to Andrews University. I actually did get my degree in aviation maintenance. So my degree is actually, I'm a mechanic, I'm an aircraft mechanic. I started flying while I was in school as well. So I got my private and my instrument by the time I graduated. And then from there, after graduation, I went and completed everything commercial on up through flight instructor ratings and instructed at a school that no longer exists. It was called Regional Airline Academy. It was in DeLand, Florida. And so I did everything else on the way up there, and then I instructed there, and then I got hired with American Eagle, which was my first flying job. Well, airline job, I should say.
What made you pick that airline? Was there anything specific about it that you liked?
Well, it's called a bridge program when these schools have these things set up that have agreements or partnerships with certain, corporations. And we had a few airlines that we had these bridge programs set up through, but American Eagle was appealing to me, first off, because I knew the name.
Yes.
And secondly, because I figured, hey, if I get to American Eagle, that's a good pathway to get to American. And that's, beginning to end all the way through my career. So there was longevity that was, associated with that choice. So I took that, and here I am. I've made the transfer from American Eagle to American. So it's kind of worked out the way I saw it then.
When did you switch over to the main airline? Was that a hard choice for you, or did you just flow right on up?
I did. Well, see, the thing is, with American Eagle, which is now called Envoy, there's a flow through because there are 3 wholly owned regional carriers that American owns. So there's Envoy, there's PSA, and there's Piedmont. And currently, the way those things work is if you're on with one of those regional carriers, one of those wholly owns, then there is an agreement that at the point, everything is seniority based in aviation. And when your seniority actually comes up to the point where you can make the flow and the change over to American, then you just show up. You get to go to American, you have a class date, you show up for class, and now you work for American. So I went that way. There is a way you can obviously go around that if you want to. If you want to go try and knock on the front door and go through everything, you can definitely do it that way, so you don't have to wait, let's say. But I definitely just kind of put in my time and waited for them to call my name and for me to kind of hop the fence. So that was the way that I went about it.
And you were the Czech Airman at Envoy, correct? Do you still do that?
I do not do that, again, because everything's seniority based. And when you change airlines, it doesn't matter going from which one to which one. When you change, you start all the way over and your seniority goes to 0. So even though I did work for American Eagle, which was a wholly owned, or Envoy, which was a wholly owned subsidiary of American Airlines, my seniority was over there, not an American. So when I started first day at American in training, I went back to 0. So Czech Airmen are captains. So now I'm back to being a first officer because my seniority started all over. So instead of sitting in the left seat and being a captain, I'm now back in the right seat as a first officer. So I'd have to wait to go through all of those things and climb that ladder again at the new company in order to even be eligible for that job again.
Okay. And not every captain does have that title, correct?
That's correct. A Czech Airman is essentially, it's like a supervisor pilot. It's a training pilot. So that person will train pilots that are coming through training or through recurrent training. If you're going through initial training, that person will be teaching you how to fly that specific airplane at this specific airline. So our procedures, the way that we like to do things, the way it's all broken down for us, as well as learning that specific airplane. So it's something I would like to do again in the future, but that's kind of down the road a ways.
And were you given that opportunity, or did you apply to it?
It's always an application process. So it wasn't just kind of handed to me, if you will. Not that anything really would be, but it is, you do have to go through an application process. And after the application process, you go through the interview and all that stuff. So then it obviously is a selection process beyond that. So I can say I went through, I applied, I interviewed, and then I was selected. So yeah.
What does your day-to-day life look like as a pilot?
For me, it's a little different just because I actually do a little of the training stuff as well. I'm not a Czech Airman, but I work in the training department as well, on the diversity and inclusion spectrum. I actually teach a class that is on that side of things, and all pilots have to take it. It is just for pilots right now. But we're kind of a front runner with that type of training. So our pilot group is the pilot group for this program, which has been really great. So sometimes my day just looks like, hey, I teach class at our headquarters, so either in Dallas or in Charlotte. And some days I look like what you anticipate a regular pilot's day would look like. So, anywhere from 1 to 3 flights a day, going from, either across the country or from country to country. Our schedules vary. They're usually somewhere between 1 day and 5 days. And so I don't have a typical schedule I always fly. That's usually a question people ask, well, what's your route or what's your typical schedule look like? Mine is all over the place. But you're typically, for me, I like 3-day trips. So typically I'm gone for 3 days, and I'll see anywhere, any combination of cities in the US, the Central America, Caribbean, or like the super close parts of South America. Throw all those in there. In 3 days, I may be around any one of those places, any combination of those.
Do you have a favorite place to fly to as a pilot?
I love doing anything in the Caribbean, obviously, and I think that's a pretty typical answer. But as far as what I really love to do, and a lot of pilots, if I'm sitting in a group of pilots, they tend to agree with this as well. I like going to the places that allow me to be a pilot. So the ones that have challenging approaches. So I really have a soft spot in my heart for New York LaGuardia. Specifically, I love doing the Expressway Visual 3-1. So any pilot who watches this will know what that is. And I love going into Washington Reagan and doing the River Visual to 1-9, because they're challenging approaches. It allows you to still do what it is that we signed up for as pilots, instead of just doing the same monotonous kind of like straight line here, straight line there. It allows you to actually, do what you love to do.
That's great. I never thought of it like that there's just different for any place you go, but that is really cool. You were talking about teaching the diversity class. Were there any setbacks in your career being a woman or being Black?
I wouldn't say setbacks per se, because I wouldn't say that they actually have stood in my way, but there are definitely some challenges to moving through the aviation world. There's some things that, as a Black, actually I'm gay too. So as a Black gay woman, there are certain things that I'm going to have to listen to constantly because I'm such an anomaly that there are certain things that are still going to be difficult, because in reality, this very traditional straight white male club is being kind of busted up by having anybody like me or any of those boxes that I check, even just by themselves. So you're going to you will get pushback. I have gotten pushback, but honestly, I've been doing this for so long, and people who have a problem with it, that's their problem. If you have a problem with me being a woman, if you have a problem with me being Black or gay or whatever it is that you choose, that's your problem. I try not to carry anybody else's baggage for them. But having a thick skin is something you'll need if you don't fit the normal kind of stereotype for a pilot. So understanding your worth without somebody having to tell you what it is something that is invaluable. And knowing that no matter what anybody says to you, you still are you, and you still have value, you're still important at the end of the day. Just let it roll off your back and keep on moving.
Would that be your advice to a girl going into aviation?
Absolutely. To any girls going into aviation, I would say you need use what you've been given. And I'm sure you have heard all of the things before. Oh, well, you're pretty good for a girl. Well, if you actually are good enough, then eventually they'll have to drop the for a girl. And I would also say everything that you've learned up until this point is going to be useful beyond this point. And every one of us, I know, even for you, I mean, I've been your age. I know what I was going through at your age, and all the things that thick skin, that armor that you're growing will only help you, but make sure that you keep your heart soft.
I really like that piece of advice. I think that's really useful for people who don't know what it's like, and so that they know how to prepare themselves mentally for what it's going to be like.
Absolutely.
Was there anything you wish you would know before becoming a pilot?
You know, I can't say that there is. I wish I had known that this was something I could do earlier.
Mhm.
That's the only thing that I would say. Everything has come as it has come beyond that, and it's been great, but I just wished I knew that this was a possibility for me before I knew that. I mean, I was, what, 20 years old? I had 19, 18, somewhere there, late teens. And I wish I had known as a child, because I could have done so much more to prepare myself for it had I known earlier.
Have you been seeing more females or more just diversity in the cockpit recently, or as your time has
Yes,
gone on?
absolutely. The numbers are growing. I can absolutely say that. It's just slow. It's going to take time. But as long as we keep showing up and we keep putting this out there and we keep showing young girls that this is something you can do and show it to them at the same time that the boys already know it, I think that we will continue to see that increase.
That's great. I think that's all I have for you today. If there's anything else you would like to share with us.
No, I'm just, I appreciate the opportunity to have a little chat with you. It's very nice to meet you.
You too. Thank
And
you.